Renaud Camus, welcome to Norway.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be in Norway. I adore Norway.
You do?
Oh, yes, I do.
From a distance or from visiting?
Oh, no, from within. I've been there several times.
Oh, really?
Even written a book about Norway. Well, actually about Denmark and Norway.
Yeah. What is so fascinating about the two countries?
Oh, the two countries are extremely different, but Norway is probably the most beautiful country in Europe, I think. That is in the world, with only Scotland, which compete with the beauty of the landscape. But I think Norway is more majestic and it's unique. I think it's absolutely extraordinary. Never seen such beautiful landscapes that in Norway.
We feel the same.
You are right.
Because I had the occasion to dine with an Italian yesterday.
Yes.
And she used to live with her husband, who is Norwegian, in Oslo a few years ago.
Yes.
And she went looking for history. And in Oslo, there is very little history compared to Italy. So I told her yesterday that we don't have your history, which is everywhere in Italy, but our soul is resting in the landscape, in nature.
It is entirely.
Yeah.
Well, you also have great painters and important writers.
Sure, but
musicians.
Yes. So we owe Europe a lot because we got our culture from Europe, but we were also during the Viking Age a very expansive.
Yes, indeed you were.
Yes.
Very much so.
So where has all the heroes gone?
I'm sorry?
Where have all the heroes gone? I heard yesterday that Norwegians were a vital force in liberating Spain from the Moors.
Huh.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
No, neither did I.
Well, there was a Norwegian queen in Castilla, Queen Christina, I think, in early Spain, and she probably took part in liberating the country. I saw her grave with a Norwegian flag, which was in a city in Castilla, in Spain.
The changes you were talking about today are historic.
Indeed.
Do you think that history could come alive in the sense of a reaction, of a new reconquista? I think the Spaniards spent 700 years.
Yes, they did. Well, for one thing, I certainly hope so, but we would come back to history. I think Europe, not only Norway, but all of Europe, after the horror of the Second World War, has wanted to step out of history.
Exactly.
That would not take part in anything anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a position which cannot be held. You cannot step out of history, because if you do and the other people, other countries do not, you become a colony, which is actually what is happening. But I do hope that Europe will decide to make its return to history. I feel very European. Everything European is mine.
You mentioned Algiers.
Yes.
And there is this fantastic film called Battle of Algiers.
Yes.
I'm sure you know it.
Yes.
Is this what may transpire in Europe? Because we already have a very high level of violence.
Yes.
And I'm sure you know this British professor Betts, who is prophesizing civil war in Europe in 5 years if nothing happens.
Well, I don't agree at all with the concept of civil war. A civil war is a war between parts of the same people.
Yeah.
That is not at all what is in order. What is in order is a decolonization revolt, which doesn't have to be a war. Some decolonization have not been war, but what has to happen is decolonization. Europe is, as I said, 20 times more colonized than it ever colonized itself, because the essential part of colonization, the essence, the very essence of colonization is demographic colonization. It is also the worst sort of colonization because there is a danger for it to be irrevocable, definitive. So what is in order is a decolonial revolt, which has nothing to do with a civil war, except, of course, that there is a considerable number of traitors, and it would be a war with them. But I think the important thing is the decolonial war. And what people call a civil war would not be at all a civil war. The war you mentioned of liberation of Spain for 7th century was not at all a civil war. It was a civilization war and a refusal of being a colony.
Do you think that French people deep down have a contempt for politicians like Macron?
Yes.
Yes.
Macron is a very image of what I call Davocratie, governs the ruling of the world by Davos, that is by financial interest and a purely financial, economical conception of the world. Is a pure product of banks and things like that. So Macron, fortunately, is not very popular, but is really the best example of what I call Davocratie, the ruling of the world by Davos, that is big tech, big state, big money, banks, and purely conceptual, purely economical and financial conception of what it is to be on Earth, or living.
One has the sense that they are at the end of their era and becomes more hubristic, more extravagant, in your face, as we call it in English. They really challenge the people.
Yes, but I hope they are at the end of their reign, but they are still terribly, terribly strong. They hold the schools, they hold the university, they hold the press, so they are the opinions, the means of controlling the minds of the people has never been such as it is now between the modern, because the modern means of communications are indeed much, much stronger than it could have, but it was under the Catholic Inquisition or under the absolute monarchy. Under Louis XIV, even Louis XIV could not go inside the minds of people like Davocratie can now. So they control what people say and what people think. So they're still very strong, but I certainly hope that there will be a revolt and decolonization and an end to Davocratie and a return to history and to culture, because the present state of Europe is also a big deculturation and decivilization.
But this elite, as you describe it, they are taking chances because they are putting a lot of things in motion that carries a huge risk, both to the nations and themselves. Take the war in Gaza and Israel's role in it, because here they talk about Israel creating facts on the ground as something terrible.
Yes.
Yes. But isn't that the reverse of their own policy here? Because they are creating facts on the ground against us every day. So there is kind of mirror war between Israel and Europe, because Israel is standing up for itself no matter what.
Yes. Well, many things in what you are saying. For one thing, I never attacked elite. That is wrong. I would attack the elites in plural form. I think the plural is sometimes the very contrary of the singular. Elites are the contrary of elite. Music with an S is the contrary of music, what music was. And culture, when you start speaking about the cultures, culture disappear.
Yeah.
And I think one of the drama in Europe is the total disparition of real elite. For instance, the cultural and intellectual elite has totally disappeared, has been eradicated. And I think that is one of the big drama of Europe. There are still, of course, intellectual and cultivated people, but they are not a class. They are not a power. They have disappeared from the scene. And as for Israel, I think Israel is the very model of what I call belonging. It is a standard of what it is to be a nation. And it is one of the oldest nations in the world,
yes,
with maybe possibly with China. And of course, I wish Europe could take example on the Jewish state and on Israel, which is a model of decolonization, because Israel had been, like Spain, had been colonized for 20 centuries, 15 of them between being Muslim colonization. The Muslim empire is one of the only empire which has not decolonized at all, except in Spain in the 15th century, and in Israel, which is a model of decolonization, the people recovering its ancestral land. And I hope Europe should do exactly the same thing.
So when Ursula von der Leyen and the European politicians start lecturing Israel about the West Bank and call it occupied territory, they are so far gone that you...
Of course, there can't be occupied territory in the historical territory of Israel. It's like saying that, I don't know, Telemark is occupied by Norway. That has no meaning whatsoever. And it's I think Israelis even are wrong in speaking about colonists in the what they call colonization on the West Bank. They are not colonists. How could they be colonists in Israel? They are fighters for the decolonization of a country which had been colonized for centuries, exactly as Europe is presently colonized.
But this is almost like a Freudian therapy. Europe is exercising on itself because 6 million Jews were killed and they returned to Israel, and by a miracle they got their country back. And now Israel is the fighting nation.
Yes.
It's really a wonder of history. They have not only come back to their own soil, but they have reconnected to the biblical past.
Yes, exactly. And they have resurrected their language, which Hebrew was supposed to have disappeared, and which has come back as a living language, which is absolutely marvelous. And they are an example for Europe. You alluded, of course, to the concentrationary world and to the Shoah. And what is essential to my way of thinking is what I call, it's the title of one of my books, The Second Career of Adolf Hitler, which is a reverse career, entirely upside down, maybe not as atrocious and cruel as the first career, but almost as important, even more important in its global geographical consequences, because having people obsessed by Hitler and wanting to do exactly the reverse of everything he did is abandoning their own country. And certainly don't think Hitler is an example, not in the least. He certainly is the inventor of a great replacement. Great replacement is something called by crazy people a Nazi theory. For one thing, it's not a theory, and it's not a Nazi theory, but it's a Nazi practice. What the Nazi called umvolking was indeed replacing population in conquered territories in Poland, in Czechoslovakia, in Belarus, even in Ukraine, with Germans, such as they were produced in industrial Lebensborn, and of course, fortunately, it didn't last very long because of the defeat of the Nazis. But what the Germans and the Nazis failed to do in Eastern Europe, Davocratie is doing exactly in Western Europe, that is replacing the people, which is the worst thing, the most criminal thing a country can do to its own people, replacing and deciding that, no, the people, we don't want that one, we pick up another one, which will be easier to manage, which actually it is not at all. But I think, yes, the present history of Europe is a second career of Adolf Hitler, and we are the only coherent anti-Nazis, as we are the only coherent ecologists.
It's a terrible thought.
It is, but it is a terrible situation.
Yes.
I think what is happening in Europe is unique. We have never seen anything like that in the history of the world. An entire continent seeing its population totally change and its civilization destroyed because people are not objects, they are not things. It's absolutely absurd to think, as the French think in a very pretentious way, that they will have French values and they will be perfect. It doesn't matter where they come from. But people are not objects. They come with their own culture, with their own religion, with their own language, and they are not exchangeable. The most sacrilegious way of thinking is that people are replaceable. That's the worst idea you can have, and the most sacrilegious even to divinity. What is being a man is being unreplaceable, and global replacement is one of the worst things, and maybe the worst thing which ever happened.
But I have a feeling that changes are happening so fast that people are almost thunderstruck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there is such a thing as global deculturation. People have been made stupid. There is an imbecilization of people, like drug. Drug is, of course, very important, literally. And in France, I don't know what is the situation in Norway, but the drug market is entirely in the hands of the occupier. The drug market they are drugging literally the French, but their drug is also in the school, in the university, in the press, which is a drug to make you not see what is happening. We are living in a total fiction. Replacement and fiction are also one of the same thing, because if you replace something by something else, it is not the same thing.
Right.
It is just a replacement, an ersatz, a facsimile, a copy, but not the thing. And if you fakeness, a fake world is getting to everybody and to everything, and everything is, I can't find the word in English, forgive me, is fake. What I call the fake heel or the false heel as opposition to the real. We are not living in a real world, we are living in a fake world, which is entirely invented to make people incapable of seeing what is happening to them. They are drugged.
But history sometimes has surprises.
Oh, yes. And one needs surprises.
And one of them is of historical magnitude and is called Donald J. Trump.
Yes.
He's now he's becoming his rise in stature because the others are minions, and is more like a Caesar. You know, because the political correctness has created such a vacuum, lack of leadership. They have really extracted the strength from the people and overtaken the institutions. So Trump can really expand his global power, and
I hope not.
It's kind of frightening in a way, but he is really like a Caesar in today's world. Even they try to take him down all the time, but I mean, you can compare Starmer and Macron and Merz to Trump, and they're like dwarfs, because he is always on the move. Always on the move.
He's certainly capable of making such disorder that something good could go out of him, of the situation. I'm not sure he's an ideal of anti-Davocratic revolution. He's himself very much part, I think, of Davocracy. He's a man of finance, of money, he's very much part of that economical and financial conception of the world, which is getting us where we are. But he's so powerful and inventive that it can cause even involuntarily, for instance, he doesn't want Europe, he's tired of having Europe not paying for its own defense, for instance. And I entirely agree with him. Europe should come back to history and have our own forces. Why is this continent relying for its defense on another country which is not especially friendly? And I think he's quite right in that, and involuntarily he might decide Europe, come back to history and decide to have again their own culture, revolt against the American intellectual, cultural colonization, have their own army and defend their own territory and their frontiers and their own people, the indigenous people. What people forget is that in Europe, the only indigenous are us, and the only decolonial people are also us. In France, there is a party which is called Les Indigènes de la République, the indigents of the Republic, which is both lies in two words. They are not indigents, they are all people from Africa or other part of the world, and they are not decolonial at all. We are the only anti-colonialists.
Is there now, after 3.5 years of war in Ukraine, and there is no let-up from the Europeans, especially the media, they want the war to go on. Is this a nihilistic streak coming back to Europe?
I think it should be a chance for Europe to come to itself and defend a very European country which is attacked, and that there is also a return of Hitlerian situation. I mean, this country has been attacked like Poland was in 1939 with no reason whatsoever. And I think Europe should defend it. This is one of the few points where I am of the same opinion as Mr. Starmer, for instance, and also.
So I hear, to my surprise,
and also Mr. Macron.
Yeah,
I think Europe should stand against an invasion and not abandon Ukraine.
But do they have the resources?
Well, they should create the resources. They might have it if they wanted to. Europe is a much richer country than Russia. There's more numbers and there's more money to have an army, just because of their unwillingness to take part in history, that they have no means to defend their own people against the different colonization to which we are submitted, an American intellectual cultural colonization, an African and Asiatic demographical colonization.
But the present policy has sapped the idealism out of young people. They are not willing to go to Ukraine to die because they have not been allowed to defend their own country.
No. It is true. People of Europe, and especially the young people of Europe, are totally deculturalized, decivilized, and have no feeling whatsoever of what a country is, which is precisely the reason where they are invaded and even adopting the mores and the culture and sometimes the religion of the invader.
May I ask you, are you religious?
No.
You're not?
No.
And not Catholic?
Well, I'm Catholic by culture and birth. I'm baptized. Okay. Yes, I am of Catholic culture.
Yes, I thought so.
I would not call myself religious.
You don't go to Mass, but you're part of Catholic culture.
Well, I've been educated as a Catholic, Catholic school, so I am very much of Catholic culture. In France, at least half of culture is Christian, Catholic.
Yeah.
And the great painter, the great music, and many of the great literary works are Christian and Catholics.
And when Notre Dame was burning,
yes,
do you think French had a sense of foreboding?
I certainly had. It was the first occasion in ages where I cried.
Yes.
Not cried ever since, but in Wisley I did cry, because it was really a very symbol. It was like church in Borgund was burning. Could be more horrible for Norwegian culture.
Yes. And Notre Dame is really 800 years of history. Yes. In the heart of the capital.
Borgund is, I think, almost
yes.
even older.
It is, but it has not been part of the daily service. You know, it's a symbol, it's a relic. It's a relic from the past.
It's so beautiful.
Yes.
It's the most beautiful thing in Norway, beside landscape and monk paintings.
So, Mr. Camus, I'm very glad to make your acquaintance.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're a very interesting man to talk with. I'm sure we could spend a lot of time, but I had to let others also have the chance to meet you.
Questions part.
Yes. So, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.